Okay, so let's talk about refactoring really quickly so that you students can get an idea. And if you are a developer out there needing to communicate this concept to your client who thinks you're just trying to get a little extra money out of them, this is a nice little metaphor I was thinking about last night in order to be able to explain to my students who are probably like T-level BTECs, probably not needing to touch refactoring yet on this course, but by the time they reach H&D level, they will need to understand this concept. So I've got a nice example. Let's go through it. So this is my website that is currently offline, that I'm putting live and deploying live this weekend, and it is a blog site. It's a rebuild of my current website, which is running on WordPress with Elementor on a CMS platform. Okay, so mentally in my head, about a month ago, my site was ready to go live. So we're going to use the metaphor of my site being a nice, shiny, really intact, well-designed structure of a car. Okay, and then I had an idea, and this is what clients will do to you once they start to see what your site can do and the things that you can do. They'll come up with more ideas, and this is brilliant. And I fell into my own trap of imagination. So instead of putting my site live and thinking to myself, I will build in properly the ability to handle lessons and courses, which was never part of my original plan. It was purely going to be a blog site managing posts and articles. I decided to cannibalize part of my site. So a month later, my site still hasn't gone live. It's going live this weekend, but we could think of my site now as a bit more of a cannibalized hybrid. So the red shiny part of my car still exists, but I needed to add in an extra feature. But the entire integrity and concept of my site was never built to have or host this extra feature. So I've used the same engine of my blog site that handles articles and displays articles and presents them and stores them in the database. And I've gone, okay, well, a blog article is very similar to a lesson, and a category will be very similar to like the sort of hierarchy of a course. Let's just go with what I've already built and make it do something extra as well. So instead of my site just having blog articles, I've forced that entire concept to now also do a second job, which is to manage my courses and lessons. So let's dive on over here. First of all, from the user perspective, here's my courses homepage. So obviously you can see here I've got a nice space to pull in more information from my database when I add a second course and a third. And I've got lots of courses everywhere at the moment. I've got them on Skillshare and Udemy and all sorts of places. So I'm going to start bringing everything and putting it all in one location over the next couple of months. So I'm like, yeah, this is actually a really good feature to add to my site, but it was never built. My site was never intended to have this. So I should have really done a phase 2 development, but I didn't, because I am who I am, and we all go through this and the clients will as well. So looking here, you can see that I've got my tables for my MySQL database, and nothing there is saying courses or lessons. Sorry, it's hard to focus. Okay, but if we slide on over, I'm looking at my posts table content here. You can already see that I'm, kind of having to say, okay, well, this particular article and record is now going to be identified as a lesson, whereby later on down here, let me go to like 500. And then later on down here, I've had to now identify it's an article so that I can tell my website how to display different lessons and different articles. And I'm already starting to now meet challenges to having sort of cannibalized my posts and categories tables to do more than the jobs that they were designed to have. So this is now becoming a real prime example of why I'm going to have to go through a refactoring process. So what I want in an ideal world, sticking to this metaphor, is I want to redesign an element of my site so that I can embrace the courses and lessons and actually have a chassis that is designed to support this extra weight in the middle. Okay, so what that means is over here I'm going to have to create a table for my courses, a table for my lessons. I'm then going to have to move the records out of this table, which is my posts table. As you can see, it's just slightly highlighted there. I'm going to have to move them into my lessons table. I need to make sure that the integrity of my site working, because it will then be live, won't be lost. And when people do come to my site, they can still come through. And so the user experience won't know any difference. But behind the scenes, I'm going to know that I've now built in professionally an infrastructure of my site that will now support growth properly, because I've already thought of other features that I want to add, and I know it's going to be nasty if I continue adding these features to a infrastructure that was never designed to support courses and lessons. So I'm going to have to push my own website through a refactoring process where I literally take out my articles from my posts table in my database and put them into a lessons table. I'm going to have to pull out all that code that's being shared in the CSS styling that currently styles a blog post as well as an article, and say, actually, I need to now separate this and create my own identity within the CSS for blog for lessons and courses. And of course, my actual website infrastructure over here with regards to how I've set up my app, all of this, like my helper, all my queries, how I control pulling and pulling out. You can see I've had to start doing some of that with a course controller. But again, it's because it's now being forced to use code from other places, it's still implemented really nastily. I haven't even got a lessons model here, which is a bit bad because again, I've basically butchered my way through this and cannibalized my posts. And also I'm going to have to start building in here views that are dedicated for lessons and courses. So you can see that my site isn't built anywhere, but yeah, I've got that functionality. And this is where your clients will struggle to understand what you're doing and why you're doing it. So this is why I'm creating this video, whilst the inspiration is here. And I wanted to get I got AI chat GPT to help me create those 3 visual cars, because, you know, from the client's perspective, if we go back to this is what the client think at the moment. If I was the client and looking at this site that I've built, this is what I think you've just built for me. But we know that clients don't often always have the money for a full rebuild, and we know that they just have a pressing need on their business to get something up and working really quickly. So actually, this is what the client will think you've just done for them. The reality is, this is what you've just built for them. The user might be experiencing this. The infrastructure is currently this way, and this is where we started out. So this is a really nice way to explain what refactoring is for a client, how you need to go through it. It is just the natural evolution of a website. In an ideal world, I should have stopped before I did this back in like the beginning of January and go, let's get the site live. And then at Easter, when I have the time, I can go through and build that proper infrastructure in. But really, I think, sometimes I didn't want to wait 4 months to Easter. I needed to get this feature working right now to benefit myself, to benefit my students. And so actually my time pressure, possibly financial pressure if it was a client, meant that actually I needed to get the solution up and running fast. But actually, we now need to schedule in a proper month in August, maybe when I'm between school years and I've got a bit of time off, that I go, actually now I need to build the limo properly. Okay, it's time to now take the site and put it together on a proper chassis and infrastructure that is going to support my future growth. And that is what refactoring is all about.